Hi, I'm Carl Azuz. As we wind down our coverage for the spring season, we're examining some new questions about COVID-19. It's not just the biggest news story of the past year, it's one of the biggest of the 21st century. International experts don't know for sure where the virus came from, but one question that's getting more and more attention is, did this virus leak or escape from a Chinese laboratory before spreading around the world? At first, international scientists called that just a conspiracy theory. Last April, we reported that the World Health Organization and the U.S. Centers for Disease Control were among the groups that believed the virus originated in wildlife, likely bats, and then jumped over to people as some other viruses have done. But as 2020 went on, some members of the Trump administration and Congress pushed for a closer look into what became known as the lab leak theory. Earlier this year, the World Health Organization said that theory was the least likely explanation, but that more research was needed. Now, a growing number of health officials are saying they're not convinced the virus spread naturally, like it might have through bats, and that a deeper investigation is crucial. China has said the COVID outbreak started at a seafood market in the eastern Chinese city of Wuhan, and that its investigation is over. But some American experts say China lied about that. For one thing, there's a question of timing. At a research laboratory in Wuhan, Chinese scientists said they didn't encounter COVID until late December of 2019. But several workers at that lab got sick the previous month and had to be hospitalized, according to a U.S. intelligence report. The Chinese lab strongly denies that. According to a separate report by CNN, a number of Chinese whistleblowers who tried to warn the world about the virus last year have gone missing or are being held by the Chinese government or have died from COVID-19. Analysts say all that suggests that China's communist government is trying to cover something up. China has not allowed an open investigation into the origins of coronavirus. It put strict rules on a previous study by the World Health Organization. But international experts say an unhindered study is needed to help guard against another pandemic. U.S. President Joe Biden has given American intelligence officials 90 days to report on whether the coronavirus came from an animal or an accidental lab leak. 10-second trivia. In a lunar eclipse, what is the term for the dark shadow the Earth throws over the moon? Umbra, tetrad, node, or umber? The umbra is the dark part of Earth's shadow in a lunar eclipse and the moon's shadow in a solar eclipse. In yesterday's total lunar eclipse, reportedly the first one of those since 2019, the Earth's shadow completely covered the moon for 15 minutes. But this wasn't just any old lunar eclipse. It coincided with what's called a blood moon.
What it was is a total lunar eclipse. What does that mean? That means the moon was completely in the shadow of the Earth. So why red, right? Let's look at it another way. Let's pretend we spin you around and pretend you're on the moon looking back at the Earth. So what are you seeing? You're seeing all of the Earth's sunsets and sunrises at the exact same time being projected right back at the moon, and then the moon just reflects that red color back at you to Earth. That's why it looks red.
And that wasn't just any old blood moon. Because it was close to Earth in its elliptical orbit, that made it appear bigger, earning the name supermoon. And because this is the month of May when flowers bloom, the full moon is known by the name flower. So, what happened yesterday was titled the Super Flower Blood Moon, which sounds like a power-up in Mario Kart, and it was at least partially visible in North and South America on Wednesday morning and East Asia and Australia in the evening. How common are super flower blood moons? They're not. For one thing, there are only 2 to 4 supermoons we can see every year. Most of them do not coincide with eclipses. There's only one total lunar eclipse on the calendar in 2021, and it just happened to be in the month of May. So, rare. But if you missed it, don't fret. There's an annular solar eclipse set for June 10th. We're taking you to East Central Africa for our next story today. It centers on the veterinarians who are caring for wildlife in Rwanda. The Virunga Mountains are home to some famous and endangered primates. The golden monkey is one, the mountain gorilla is the other. These can grow to be 5.5 feet tall and weigh as much as 500 pounds, and they can catch diseases from humans. Richard Quest explores what it's like to have gorillas in the midst.
The Virunga Mountain chain in East Africa. Stunning, beautiful. and boasting one of the most diverse habitats on the continent. This is where to find the true kings of the jungle. More than half of the world's population of endangered mountain gorillas live here. And I've come to meet a few of them. Duly sanitized and ready to start the climb to the gorillas, we have to wear masks throughout. Obviously, this is to protect ourselves, but more importantly, to protect the gorillas from us. Quite right, too. Onwards! We humans share 98% of our DNA with gorillas. It means coronavirus may be just as harmful to them as us.
Even before COVID, gorillas have suffered from respiratory infections. We have confirmed that some of those were from humans, but they are more vulnerable with our activities, given that they're close to us. We can transmit disease to them. Our diseases are very deadly when they get to their communities.
Dr. Noel Jean Bosco works for the Gorilla Doctors, a team of 12 veterinarians in the region. His patients have been more prone to catching human illnesses for more than a century, ever since the expansion of agriculture in the area. This susceptibility to our illnesses, combined with historic hunting of gorillas, was disastrous for the population.
In 1933 King Kong movie. That one has initiated the more hunting, buying permits and going out and hunting gorillas. So if you kill one, you're extraordinary. So that's what went on, leading to the significant decline of great apes.
In the 1980s, their number was less than 250. Thanks to the work of Dr. Noel and his team and the conservation efforts, today there are more than 1,000 of them. Delivering medication and performing surgeries, of course, is a real trial on cases that weigh up to 500 pounds.
They are very heavy, very strong. We don't usually have to carry that much mega silverback from a place to another place because our hospital is right in the forest. So we do everything there.
Hunting is now illegal in the parks, but it's still a big problem for even the smallest in the group, like this infant whose hand was caught in a poacher's snare.
If you don't intervene within time, that animal will die or lose the hand or foot, depends on where the snare is.
Freeing and returning him safely to the group was a career highlight for Dr. Noel.
The feeling, well, you're making a difference. It's very unique. You see how much you're contributing to the using veterinary science to restore a population. It's really beyond imagination. You feel like, wow, I'm there.
As for me, observing these miraculous creatures so close to us and so threatened by what we do. It's difficult to express how overwhelming it is to be in their presence and watching the interplay, trying to work out what's going on between the silverbacks and the blackbacks and the kids and the rough and tumble and the internal dynamics, and then they just wander off, leaving us wondering, well, what was it all about?
When Xiao Qi, the National Zoo's panda cub, was born, CNN's Jeannie Most described him as a shrieking alien salamander. Thankfully, he's now in a cuter phase. The giant panda, well, he's not that giant yet, but he is 9 months old, and he's gone from shrieking to climbing, getting cuddled by his mother, cuddling her back, and climbing some more. With the National Zoo reopened, visitors can now see him in action, assuming he's not hiding in a tree. What's black and white and cute all over? A border collie. But I don't mean to panda pandas. They provide potential for pandering pandas. After handling a pandemic, there's pent-up demand to unburden ourselves, and for pandas of the panda, coming out to the zoo is a bare necessity. From pandas to foxes. Foxborough High School, that is. Thank you for watching from Foxborough, Massachusetts. With one show left to go in our 2021 spring season, I'm Carl Azus for CNN 10.